Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can you hear me? Can I say you? Can I say I can't hear you. Good evening. I want to welcome everyone to our March 17th regularly scheduled council meeting. Please note the council's in full attendance. Our first item of business is items from council. I have one, but anybody else would like to go first? Please, now's the time.
I have a request.
Sure.
I'd like to have a report as to how many times the streets have been swept in the main thoroughfares, the residents, and see how that program's working out. And also on what happens when something doesn't get, I mean, we're supposed to get so many sweepings of the residents, so many sweepings of the main streets. Are we paying by each of those items? I'd like a report on that too. Or do we, you know, if they don't do it, do we get a cut? And also when the cutting of the ditches and stuff like that, the mowing, I'd like to find out how that's going with the season and everything, whether it increases the amount that we pay or does it stay the same as it's a set amount?
We pay by mowings.
By mowings, right. So do we pay by sweepings is my question too.
I think the answer is yes.
Okay.
If they don't get swept, then we don't pay them.
Okay, but I'd still like to see the report just to see where we stand with them,
Yes,
okay?
ma'am. Absolutely.
Okay. And then I have two things I'd like to pull from the I'd like to pull D4 and D5. Thank you.
The umpire and the,
Police uniform?
okay, D4 and 5 will be pulled. What else, council?
Mayor, you had asked me about a request I had made recently about our outstanding debt summary and the intent by bond issue, and that report was given to us recently. I didn't want to report on it. I would like to ask staff if they could post it on the website for the city, so it'd be available.
It's posted.
Is it already posted, Gilbert?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So it's called the Outstanding Debt Summary with Intent by Bond Issue. Thank you.
Is it under the finance department? Okay. Okay. Very good, thank you.
It's a good summary for anyone who's interested.
Well, I mean, the point there is that citizens ask where's all the money that we're spending on projects, and that kind of gives a good summation of a bulk of it.
Yes, sir.
For the capital improvement projects, the big bond issues that we've taken out over the years. Thank you.
I did have one thing I wanted to mention. I was asked by a resident about the air brakes on trucks and why we didn't have an ordinance in the city. And I talked to the city manager about it, and apparently there's a little bit of history. We've looked at it before, and if not at this meeting, maybe at another meeting, we can just get a little report on what the rationale behind not moving forward with an ordinance addressing that.
Okay, very good. Anything else? If not, I did have one item. I'd like to ask if Mr. Jared Mayfield would update us on the comprehensive plan. I know we have a big meeting coming up.
Yes, sir, we sure do. In front of you, I placed one of the postcards for the Plan 2035. In 2 weeks from tonight, we have our first big picture outreach, first big public hearing for the comprehensive plan, the city's comprehensive plan. As I said, it's 2 weeks out from today, March 31st, 5:30, out at the community center. So please invite your friends, neighbors, family, friends out to that event. Also, if you happen to have a Facebook account, on the back of the card is the Planning Department's Facebook page, Voice of Victoria, Texas. If you'll do us a favor and like that page and share, this postcard is on, that poster is on our Facebook page as well. If you'll like that and share that, that'll help us, one more method to help us get the word out about the meeting. And we actually have a contest that we just put out, I guess yesterday, For those that like and share the page, you become eligible for 2 VIP passes to Boot Fest 2015. So a little bit of incentive for our citizens to help share and get the word out about it. But it's our citizens' opportunity to come out and tell us what it is that they like about Victoria and what we need to do to make Victoria or keep Victoria as a great place to live, work, and play. So appreciate your help in getting the word out. Appreciate it.
Very good. So did you want to add to that?
No, I was just going to make one comment. The Victoria Alliance is doing their public hearings too, and this is different than Victoria Alliance. And so I know I've run into people where there's some confusion over, well, I'm going to the Alliance meeting, so I don't need to come to the cities. No, we need the public to come to this city meeting. This is the city's vision for the next 20 years, whereas the Victoria Alliance is more of a community-wide vision and not just the city of Victoria. So it's critical.
So Tuesday, March 31st at 5:30. That's when is that?
2 weeks today.
2 weeks.
2 weeks from
tonight.
today. Okay. We don't have another council meeting between now and
No,
then.
we don't.
5:30 at the community center. And I ditto what the city manager said about this is the city's plan. We've had this comprehensive plan for 15 years already, and we're updating it. And I would add that even back in '99, when we were working on it, I think I was on planning commission, I was a little skeptical, but it's probably one of the most referenced plans we've ever done, and no one made us do it. A lot of times, unfortunately, we're required to create a document based upon some project or funding or a state or federal mandate, but this is our own, and there's been a tremendous amount of time put into it. So I really do encourage people, and there will be door prizes. Now, Mr. Mayfield, you said there were passes for Boot Fest, VIP passes, but that's based upon liking your Facebook page?
Liking the Facebook page and/or attending, and if you attend the meeting, you also become eligible. I think I've got that.
Okay. And
Yes.
I'm sure we can make sure there are some, I'm sure. And also, there may be some other door prizes, just you may not know that. But
Okay.
in a quick conversation earlier today with the city manager, I think there's going to be some other interesting door prizes besides those Boot Fest passes. So encourage
good.
everyone to show up.
Do you have some more of these cards?
I have a few more with me tonight. We have
I was
a
going to
ton
say.
of them in the office.
Besides staff, you might, for those that are here in the audience, maybe hand them out that are not staff members,
All right.
And-
if you've got them.
And the prize, and the door prizes I speak of are donated. They're not from the city. Just want to clarify that. So,
Very good.
okay.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, council? If not, we'll move into citizens' communication. I do want to remind everyone, this is the time to speak about any topic, including the CIP, which we're going to go into later. We will not open for comment at that time. So anything at all, this is the time for citizens to come forward and speak. Make sure that's real clear. So come on forward, give us your name and address, and try out of respect for everyone else to keep it to about 5 minutes.
My name is Kenneth Schusterreich. I live at 275 Bass Lane in Victoria County and in the ETJ of the City of Victoria. I believe you are all in receipt of my email reply to Mr. Bill Richter. I have here a water bottle from my church back when the city changed to surface water. Never thought I'd ever need it again, but I'm glad I kept it. One of the ladies at the church decided to save some money and refill it from the kitchen sink. The nasty brown and green rings you see right at the bottom are a result of the city's water experiment. When the city got huge numbers of complaints about nasty, stinking water, a city official seated very close to me tonight said the city was tweaking the new systems. Excuse me, but pumping water down into the aquifer is not something to experiment on, not something to test. Considering the city's reputation for irresponsibility, I oppose you experimenting with my water and my neighbor's water. Any city that refuses to responsibly represent their taxpayers and ask the state's attorney general for an indictment of GBRA for criminal nonfeasance as outlined by the Texas Penal Code should not be trusted with pumping anything whatsoever into our aquifer. By the way, would any of you like a sample of this? We can pour some of that water in there, swirl it around. Y'all could test it, experiment. No takers? That's all from me. Thank you.
Citizens communication is still open.
Mayor, members of the council, James Dodson. I reside at 410 North Vine Street in Victoria, and I would also like to speak to the same issue as Mr. Schustrite. Item G, you're planning for your CIP, and urge you to include in your plans the funding of the next phase of the feasibility studies for the aquifer storage and recovery project. I was a member of the consulting team that worked on phase 1 of that, and I think you've been given a report on it, and I will say that in talking to others about it, I'm getting some very positive feedback from Texas Water Development Board and other, well, of course, they were the co-funders of the project, but many people consider this a very, very doable project, that it's one of the best projects they've seen and go through the feasibility study phase in a long time. And it also offers much more than just benefits to the city of Victoria, potentially. I want to let you know that I'm working on a study now, another Water Development Board funded study, to look at the potential use of ASR to actually improve environmental flows, particularly bay and estuary inflows. The idea is similar. When the times are good, the water levels are high, every bit of the water rights downstream have been taken care of. There's already been ample inflow for the bays and estuaries. The opportunity to then divert water rights, store them, bank them for times of drought, and then return that water to the stream, or use that water in lieu of diversions from the stream and leave water in the stream for environmental flows, is another potential benefit of ASR. We're looking at that in this study. We're trying to find water rights that might be acquired and dedicated to environmental flows, and then use ASR as a means of making them more reliable, and then managing the deployment at the appropriate times of that water to meet specific inflow needs in the bays and estuaries. So it's very complementary to what has been looked at in the phase 1 feasibility study. Hopefully it would lend support for potentially a project that would have more than one purpose: municipal water supply, protection of environmental flows. And as we described the original study as a regional study, I think there's still also opportunity to reach out and potentially involve some of the other entities that were part of that study. The Lavaca Navidad River Authority, GBRA, Port of Victoria, of course, the local groundwater conservation district were all partners with the city of Victoria in that study. So I think moving forward, perhaps even making sure there's some funding that would be available in the more immediate time frame to look at some of the permitting issues and start the ball rolling before you actually get into the engineering, design, and construction phase of this next step. So again, I urge you to look at it favorably and put some money in the budget for it. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Sarah Hounshell-Meinhardt, 6115 Country Club Drive. I'm also president of the Victoria Rotary Club, and I'm going to show you this is one of 3 portable automated external defibrillators that the Victoria Rotary Club is happy to be donating to the City of Victoria. More commonly known as an AED, this device can automatically diagnose life-threatening cardiac arrhythmias and treat them through the application of an electrical shock. Someone with an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest has about a 5% chance of survival without defibrillation, but that jumps to about 33% with an AED. So these 3 AEDs will be placed at the VPD shooting range, which is utilized by city, county, state, and federal law enforcement. In 2009, a Victoria County Sheriff's deputy suffered a fatal heart attack while at the shooting range, and his death may have been prevented with an AED. And so his story inspired Dr. Bruce Bachnight, who is the father of Councilman Bachnight, to come up with this project and this idea to donate some AEDs where they could be used in the city. Besides being placed at the VPD shooting range, one will be placed at Riverside Park, at Riverside Stadium during baseball season, and then possibly moved to the new concession stand that's being built during the off-season. And also in the VPD Mobile Command Unit, which is utilized at all major city functions from Boot Fest to the fireworks and parades. Victoria Rotary would like to extend a special thank you to one of our own members, VPD Chief J.J. Craig, as well as Parks and Rec Director Colby Van Gundy, Mayor Palasic, and City Manager Charmel Garrett for working with us to help us select these locations. We also want to thank the city just for agreeing to accept these, to maintain them, and to train their employees in their use. They don't require a lot of training. Dr. Bachnight did a demo today at our Rotary meeting, and it actually walks you through it and speaks to you. And as long as you're not touching the person being defibrillated, they're foolproof. So as Rotarians, we are always looking for ways to make our community a better place and would love to partner with the city in some future endeavors, perhaps on a dog park. I know constituents often come to you and they may have really great ideas or needs that really just don't fit within the city's authority or scope or even budget. And that's where groups like the Rotary Club can step in. So whenever this happens, I hope that you just please let us know. Councilman Bachnight is also a member of our club, and so you can pass on those ideas to him. And again, thank you for accepting our donation, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Sarah, I think we need to be thanking you. That is very, very generous, and we appreciate the Northside Rotary. Which one?
Victoria Rotary. But Northside is a great club, too.
I knew I would do that. There are 3 Rotaries,
There are
right?
3. There's Sunrise, Northside, and Victoria.
Forgive me, Victoria, but Rotary. You're right. They're all great. They're service organizations. They're wonderful. And I think people, in general, often forget how much good you guys do. So we thank you immensely. And is Mr. Leon here too? Bobby Leon was here. He's a member?
Yes.
Yes, and he was here as well. I don't see him now, but thank you for everything. We appreciate it. Citizens communication is still open for anyone who'd like to speak about anything at all. Okay. Seeing no one jump up, we'll close citizens communication and we'll move into ordinances.
Item C1 is an ordinance providing for the extension of certain boundary limits of the City of Victoria, Texas, and the annexation of certain territory consisting of approximately 2.34 acres of land at the request of Naven Investments, LLC, adopting a service plan for the territory to be annexed, repealing all conflicting ordinances, providing for severability and publication, and declaring an effective date.
Mayor, I move we adopt C1.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you.
Item C2 is an ordinance directing the city manager to execute a contract of sale to transfer approximately .478 acres of city property and George Street right-of-way to KJ Koch Lands Limited in exchange for $22,500 and declaring an effective date.
Move we adopt.
Second.
Okay. Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you.
Item C3 is an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2014-2015 City of Victoria budget by transferring $532,596.44 from the general fund budget and $160,000 from the Community Development Block Grant Fund budget to the Construction Fund budget for the Community Center Splash Pad project. and amending the construction fund budget by reallocating $67,403.56 of leftover funds from the completed Dairy Road Improvements CIP project to the Community Center Splash Pad project budget, repealing all conflicting ordinances, providing for savings, and declaring an effective date.
Move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any questions or discussions? We've talked about this quite a bit already, so. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
Item C4 is an ordinance declaring unopposed candidate to be elected to the office of City Council District 2 and canceling the joint general election on May 9th, 2015 for this district, providing for severability, declaring an emergency, and providing an effective date. Go ahead.
I know this item comes with a public hearing. It's about what you're going to...
It does, and I was also going to say, as an emergency reading, we need 5 affirmative votes for it to pass.
Okay. Well, let's just open the public hearing real quick first. If there's anyone who'd like to speak just to this item, now's the time. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing on C4.
Mayor, I
Council?
move we adopt C4.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion,
I have a couple of questions.
questions?
For
Yes, sir.
Thomas. Could you, for the voters to understand what we're doing here, explain what boxes will be closed and what boxes would be open? Since one district would go unopposed and we're canceling that election.
Absolutely. Remember that because the county has adopted countywide polling places, voters can choose to vote at any of the remaining open boxes. However, as a result of this ordinance, precinct number 4 at Pettywelder Middle School will be closed. Box number 5 at Crane Elementary School will be closed. Box number 7 at O'Connor Elementary School will be closed. And box number 32 at Victoria ISD Administration Building will be closed. All of the remaining boxes will be open, including the Patty Dodson Public Health Center, which is the early voting location as well.
City boxes.
City boxes, thank you.
And since the school district, all their folks were unopposed, they're not even in the race at all, so that simplifies it even more. Except that we pick up the bill for the whole election. So it's okay.
No runoffs, though.
You have another question?
No runoffs.
Oh, right. Hopefully, hopefully.
That means we'll get ready to go for budget work sessions in June.
Good.
Was there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you.
Item C5 is an ordinance directing the city, I'm sorry,
Pull that.
item C5, the staff would like to again pull. I'm sorry, council, we still do not have the appraisal on that property. I understand there were some rain delays in getting that appraisal done. Item C6 is an ordinance reviewing and renewing Chapter 15, Article 3, Juvenile Curfew of the Victoria City Code, repealing parts of conflicting ordinances, providing a penalty not to exceed $500, providing for enforcement, publication, and savings, declaring an emergency, and declaring an effective date. This is also an emergency reading, which will require 5 votes.
Let's open the public hearing first. If anyone would like to speak to this item alone, please do so now. Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing on C6. Council?
Make a motion to approve item C6.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions, discussions?
I just have one question. How far back do we go on curfews, Chief?
Sorry?
How far back do we go on the curfews? Because I see report for 3 years. I just wondered how far back we've been doing curfews.
Mid-90s.
I
Yeah, I
thought
was
it
going to
was
say that
not-
probably for somebody who's been here a little bit longer than me, but I know it's been several years. We only captured the last 3 years.
Right, I understand, but I thought even when we were growing up.
It was 95 or 96, because I remember when it was enacted. So,
Okay.
there are no changes. This is just a renewal every 3 years.
Just a renewal only, and there are no changes at all, and just every 3 years, it requires the approval of the governing body, which is yourself, for it to continue.
You still find it useful?
I do still find it useful as a tool for law enforcement.
How often is it utilized? I mean, is it frequently enforced? I mean, is it?
Well, last year, we issued a total number of 55 citations. However, we ended up using it as probable cause for stops much more than that to actually investigate additional activity. So, and I don't have that number in front of me. So I do know that it was heavily used at times, and we actually issued 55 citations, though, as a result of it.
And in our ordinance, Do we have, for example, if a young person has a job after hours, after the hours of the curfew, do we have, is there something in that addresses that? Okay, well, good. All right. Great, thank you.
Yes.
This was an emergency reading?
Yes, sir. It's on emergency reading because it expires automatically if it's not readopted, and so this would provide for...
It's just the language in the ordinance under Section 5 was a little bit different than what I'm used to reading for emergency readings.
That's correct. That's because it's a declaration of an emergency. That we don't normally have that paragraph in there unless it's
Okay.
for an emergency reading.
Okay.
I did have one last question. I'm sorry.
Councilman Hagan, I was going to answer your question for you. In your packet here, it shows you the number of citations by year here, previous years.
Well, thank you, Councilman Halapaska. But I did want to ask you this regarding it. Is the $500 fine, if it's dispensed, if it's not paid, is a warrant go out for the parents or the kid?
Well, it's up to, not to exceed $500, but I will actually acquiesce to the city attorney in terms of how it's dealt with when it comes to municipal court, because that's the next step.
Yeah. Juvenile offenses are a complex area of law. Let me start by saying that juveniles do not receive warrants because they are underage. Neither do their parents, because their parents aren't responsible for the criminal conduct. And so there's a whole separate branch of law that deals with how those juveniles are processed through the system when it's a Class C misdemeanor. It's a very complicated area, and that is part of the reason why the municipal court has been investigating the juvenile case manager to help those families walk through that process.
Thank you, Thomas.
Sure.
Anything else, council? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Okay, you want to just do the 1, 2, 3, and 6, I guess?
Sure. 4 items remaining on the consent agenda. are-
C7.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. C7.
That was a new item, I believe, right?
Yes,
Yeah, it was.
a new item. Item C7 is an ordinance amending the 2014-2015 City of Victoria Environmental Services budget in the amount of $32,982 to provide additional funding for the construction of a 46.6-acre cap at the Victoria landfill, repealing all conflicting ordinances, providing for savings, and declaring an effective date.
So moved.
Second, are there any discussions or questions?
Is there a public hearing on that?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bugman. We'll open the public hearing on that. If anyone would like to speak to that item, C7, please do so now. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. We have a motion and a second. Are there questions? It's pretty well explained.
Final cost? This is going to be the final cost on this?
We are probably about 2 months away from finishing up this project. We're way behind due to the amount of rain that we've had. I would hope, but I'm not going to guarantee.
Okay. Just wishing.
So am I. I'm
Yes.
wishing it was over 2 months ago.
And we'll have a contract next council, I guess. for the-
Resolution,
a
yeah,
resolution.
for
Yes, yes, sir, we will. And it's explained on there as well, but I'll be happy to
Okay.
answer any other questions.
Glad for the rain, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Glad for the rain.
We had that conversation yesterday. There's some that's glad and some
Yes,
that's
I
not
know.
glad.
Yeah.
Two
Very
different governmental departments on the either side of you.
Depends.
All right. No further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Now the consent agenda.
Now we do the consent agenda. There are 4 items remaining that will be approved by a single vote. They are first, the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of March 3rd, 2015. Second, the resolution authorizing the city manager to execute all documents necessary with UniFirst Corporation to provide for the rental of uniforms for the designated personnel in various city departments in an estimated amount of $45,000 and declaring an effective date. The third is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute all documents necessary with Galls LLC for the purchase of uniforms for the fire department personnel in an estimated amount of $26,000 and declaring an effective date. And then item D6 is a resolution awarding a traffic conduit bore on Laurent Street and Juan Lin Street to Morris Underground Construction for their base bid of $26,600 authorizing the city manager to execute all documents necessary to complete the project, and declaring an effective date.
Mayor, move we adopt 1D1, 2, 3, and 6.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. D4.
D4 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with the Crossroads Umpires Association to provide umpires and scorekeeper services for the Parks and Recreation Department's adult sports programs in an amount not to exceed $45,000 per year, and declaring an effective date.
Move we adopt D4.
Second.
Thank you. Questions?
Yes. The information does not match our Exhibit A, where the flag football is changed to $18, and you have $20 on the Exhibit A.
I believe it changed it to 20, didn't it?
No, we're going from, it's going to 18.
No, I think it was,
Oh, okay, okay, I see.
2014
It
was
goes to
18, and it's
14.
going to 20 for
Okay, I see it.
2015.
There you go. Love you. Okay, got it.
Good. Any other questions? If not, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you.
Item D5 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute all documents necessary with Nardis Public Safety to purchase various uniforms for the Victoria Police Department personnel in an estimated amount of $76,210, and declaring an effective date.
Mayor, move we adopt D5.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion?
I just want clarification on the fiscal year 2015. You say $43,125 to date of the allocated $81,610? That's
Yes,
correct?
that's
That's what
correct.
I understand?
Yes.
Okay. And we are being asked to approve $76,210. So I'm just saying there's $38,438 coming, left in that line item. Are you moving from another one, or? Please.
Councilman Solis, as you're aware, there's a timing issue. Not all these uniforms are purchased at one lump sum throughout the year. They're going to spend down the current 2015, when hopefully in 2015, if the budget approved, you're going to have the remaining allocation flowing over due to timing of when the contract is issued and how they go out and get the uniforms.
Okay. Well, it just.
It would
looks
be
like
much easier if we had a start date October
no.
1st, and they go do October 1st, boom, we get the 70-something, yes. But
Okay,
it's a timing lag between when they acquire the uniforms and when they pay it out, and it's been consistent that way, and the cash flow works that way so far.
Okay, I see what you
Now, if they
mean.
want to change that, it'd be a different story.
Well, it just kind of looks kind of like.
It looks
and doesn't
kind of odd,
explain
I
it.
know, I
Okay,
know.
that's the
Yes,
only
sir.
reason.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That's why I have Gilbert explain my odd stuff.
Oh, okay. Well,
That's the vertical, now,
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Resolutions?
Resolution E1 is a resolution awarding the Water Treatment Plant Number 3 Improvements Project to Peyton Construction Incorporated for their low bid, including all additive alternates, of $1,035,000, authorizing the city manager to execute all documents necessary to complete the project, and declaring an effective date.
Council?
Make a motion, we approve item E1.
Second.
Motion and second. I see Mr. Short ready to answer any questions, if anyone has any. A lot of good bids. Yes. Good for us. Seeing no questions, did you have any comment?
No, sir. I'm just
Okay.
here to answer questions.
Uh-oh.
See, I have it under D6. Am I just like totally
No,
confused?
flip it. No?
D6 was the consent item. We're doing E1.
My E1 for the improvement projects,
Plant 3.
The water treatment.
for the water treatment.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Is that what we are? Okay. So we do, what happened to D6 was the
It was
warning? Okay,
consent.
never mind. Now I'm getting confused.
Okay. E1. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. E2?
E2 is a resolution awarding the 2014-15 Seal Coat project to James Construction Group LLC for their low bid of $1,468,270, authorizing the city manager to execute all documents to complete the project, authorizing the director of public works to execute the additive change order number 1 in the amount of $365,113, which will increase the contract amount to $1,833,383 and declaring an effective date.
Make a motion, we adopt E2.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Did we budget like 2 million?
Yes, that's correct. These bids came in very, very good bids. I think it has to do with the volume we're doing, and that's why you see the change order there, because we want to do as many streets as we possibly can. This change order takes us up to the 25% limit that we can increase a contract by.
Okay, good.
Go ahead.
Can we express the subdivisions and some of the projects that are under this?
I'm sorry?
Can we express the projects that are under this ordinance here, or resolution, I'm sorry?
You want to read them off, Lynn?
You just want me to list them? Is that what you're
Yes,
asking?
sir. I think, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Meadow Creek, Meadow Creek, the Hamlet, the Lakes of Colony Creek, the Village of Colony Creek, Vine Street and Wagner Way, the Ridge at Springwood, Eagle Creek Subdivision, West Haven of Colony Creek, Wayside Terrace, and the Gardens of Colony Creek. And then by change order, we are adding portions of the original town site that are not included in the downtown overlay phase 2 project. Because if you remember, we did the downtown utilities and where we cut a lot of these streets to put in utilities. When we came and did the Main Street street improvement and sidewalk project, we repaved some of those streets. Then we did a phase 2, a downtown overlay phase 1, which took care of Bridge and Glass Street and some of those cross streets there. And now we're doing a downtown phase 2, which picks up some more. This will really complete that that area, that kind of area bounded by East Street and Moody, and then on down to River and up to Commercial.
Thank you.
You know,
Lowry Street.
And FB Lowry in the park, yes.
Park, which is the road that goes into Grover's Bend.
if I may, it's always a good time, too, to mention, so the public understands this is part of a bigger, long-range plan. There are worse streets in town, and we need to all do our part when we're talking to citizens, but we are trying to save these streets and preserve them. And as the money comes available, we'll get to some of the rebuilds in the next few years. Also factors such as utilities. If we know that there's water and sewer replacements going to happen in 5 years, we're not going to do anything yet because we're going to go in and just rebuild the entire thing. So hopefully, I ask the public to help understand that we're trying to preserve these because it saves money in the long run. True statement?
That's correct. This is a maintenance activity. Seal coating is a maintenance activity.
Right. So, very good. I'm excited to see all those, that you're able to stretch it that far.
And I'd like to applaud staff and council for taking a more proactive approach to maintenance. Many times in a short budget year, it was the first thing that got kicked to the curb. I'd like to see if we couldn't keep an even hand on it, be a little more proactive going forward.
One other quick question. You're leaving some money for contingency there? You're not quite hitting that 2 million, is it?
No, because there's a law that states we can only increase that by 25%.
But you could go out for another bid for another 200,000 approximately?
Possibly.
But that's probably a very small.
It's good. You're not going to get these good of prices on a small project like that.
Okay. Very good. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
On item E3, Mayor and Council, I have a substituted attachment that I've passed out to each of you and that I also emailed to each of you prior to the meeting. This is a resolution adopting the guidelines and criteria for tax abatement agreements entered into by the City of Victoria and declaring an effective date. And Mayor and Council, the revised attachment makes no changes over what was adopted last year.
Make a motion, we adopt E3.
Second.
Motion and second. Are there any questions or discussion? See, Mr. Fowler is here to answer anything.
Well,
Anything to add?
Mayor, the only thing I would say, and council, is first, thank you for your continued support of economic development that brings industry and jobs to our community. As you know, your tax abatement guidelines and criteria have been a significant player in the toolbox for us to bring new industry to Victoria. And as Mr. Goosh has already stated, we're recommending that you adopt this unchanged from the current guidelines and criteria.
Thank you. Mr. Alvarez?
Yeah, quickly, for council, it's that 1.13 under new jobs is that correct, Thomas?
Correct.
That was the amendment we made last year in February? That kind of.
I believe so. Yeah.
That kind of, instead of looking at just a job, minimum wage versus a high-paying job, that takes into account the amount of salary or wage earnings that job creates. Is that correct?
That's correct. Whereas before, and I'm looking under economic qualifications 2.7B, before we had a requirement of 10 new jobs without any respect given to the salary ranges. And what we've done here, or what you did, was give the flexibility for less than 10 jobs if they meet the equivalent payroll of 10 jobs times the average county wage, which right now is in excess of $22 an hour. So in other words, if a company paying $30 an hour only had 5 or 8 jobs, they may also qualify, which recognizing the better paying jobs.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Council, that was 2.7 under economic qualifications. Have we had any tax abatements in the last fiscal year or current fiscal, or we have something in the pipe mill maybe?
I don't remember any in the past
14.
year. No, I don't think in 2014. I would anticipate, there could be some in 2015.
We hope.
That's always my goal.
We have the opportunity at least.
That's right. If we do, that means the new jobs and new companies are coming. That's right.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Fowler. Any further questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you, Council. City manager reports?
Just the work session.
And straight into the work session? Okay. Everybody should have their documentation with them.
Ready? Okay, good evening, Mayor, members of council. We're here this evening to take an update at our capital improvement program. As y'all know, this is a 5-year rolling window that we use to plan for, select, prioritize, and eventually construct all of the capital construction projects for the city. And at least one time every year, we come before you and update that. We take all the completed projects off of the list, reconcile all the funding sources, and then add funding and make a recommendation to you for projects to add for the new year that's rolling on. And so that's what we plan to do this evening. When last we met for an update was April of last year, April 2014. That evening we showed you a planned project list of $102.2 million. And Gilbert had identified $149.7 million in available funding through 2019, which if you subtract the 102 from the 149, that left you $47.5 million unappropriated. That evening we made a recommendation to you to add make a net add of $47.5 million to the planned project list, which left the balance or zero going through 2019. As we sit here tonight now, we've gone back, updated that planned project again, a list again for 2015. Gilbert has gone back and reconciled his funding, made a projection for funding for 2020, and we have a recommendation for you to consider this evening for projects to add to the planned project list. So as we sit here this evening, we have a planned project list through 2019 amounting to $138.4 million. Gilbert has identified funding through 2020 of $161.6 million, which leaves $22.23 million unappropriated and available for projects. We will make a recommendation to you this evening to make a net addition to the planned project list of $16.8 million. That's a net in that it's a $23 million add and a $6.5 million deletion. And then that leaves about $6.4 million unappropriated, and that money is available in 2020. If there's no questions up to now, I'll move into recommendations. If you have questions or comments as we go through these, please don't hesitate to stop me. I've got our recommendations shown here, kind of broke out by year. Our first recommendation for you for 2016 to consider is construction of a new Parks Department building. This would be a metal building constructed in Riverside Park. It has an office area as well as a maintenance shop on it, estimated at $1.5 million. If you have specific questions about this building, I have the Parks Director, Kobe Van Gundy, here to answer those.
Where's it go?
Haven't determined the exact site, but the northern part of the park as you come in on Vine Street in that general location area there. The exact spot is not yet determined, so we'll still plan that and look to see what future plans as far as from the Riverside Park list as far as where different apparatuses or equipment might go, and so that's where we'll look at that northern section of the park.
And what happens to the old building?
We would probably, right now, the Parks Department has a lot of equipment and stuff storage like barricades and different things that we use for recreation throughout the park in old concession stands and different places like that. So what my recommendation would be is to demo the admin part of the building and use the metal building to gut that and use that as that storage facility. So we have everything in one facility.
I have one question. Wouldn't the present administration office be at the highest peak in the park?
The
highest elevation, yes.
Well, you still have that at the Rose Garden. When you start going down, we would be above that to the north. So as you come into the park, we'd still be on that same plateau.
Okay.
And then it starts to go down, and we'd be out of the floodplain.
Okay.
There you go. We're not in the flood.
Okay.
What's the square footage of this building?
9,800 square feet.
How much office?
If you can give me just a second, I can get that number for you.
While he's doing that, one of the questions the mayor had asked me was how long have we been talking about replacing this building? And I was having this conversation with Doug Cochran before he left, so we've been having the conversation about the need to replace this building for several years. It's just that we have the funding for next year is why it's up on this list now.
How old is that existing building?
It's hard to determine because I asked the same question.
The reports that I've got from the building is that it used to be the clubhouse for the golf course. Original clubhouse. So I don't know.
Part of it, I have to do how much time has gone by, but we're looking at 40 years or more. I mean, are we going back into the 60s here? I don't know, Ms. Chowpask, you remember anything? I'm not picking on you because
Sorry, I'm not that old.
You're the elder here. But,
it was there as a parks building when I moved to this community in 1983. So
when I was,
that's 30-something years.
I know in about 1979, I was over there on a work project. It's still same.
Yeah.
Anyway, you had to answer his question.
The shop facility there is a roughly 3,000 square foot, and so that office area is about 6,000 square foot, a little over that. But that does include additional working space. Currently, my crew leaders are officed in that metal, what we consider our work area, and so I've got about 500 square foot of workable space. They would be moved into that office area, and so that the 3,000 square foot shop area would be purely where we can work and store equipment.
Is this going to be general fund? What are we talking about?
Yes, general fund.
General
yes,
fund.
I know city manager invited us all out to go look at it. I had a chance last week. When did I come by? I don't know, Wednesday? I was, I'd been in there on and off over the years. I was a little surprised. Looks are deceiving from the road, in my opinion. When you go in there and you look in the back and upstairs, it's really rough. I was a little bit surprised. Council?
The only question I have, 3,000 square foot's enough for all your equipment?
The stuff that not everything would be stored in there, but like right now, we have 3 portable buildings that we're storing weed eaters and small equipment in. Some of the larger stuff would be still kept out in the shop area or the bay area, the yard. But right now, I would like to get it out of just a portable building. So that includes areas in there.
And part of this, I mean, the firm has looked at what needs to be stored inside there, and they're recommending that.
Yes, there is chemical storage areas in there, in that building as well that's been planned, and we've just got a conceptual drawing of it. We'd have to get into more of the details, as we go forward.
Mr. McCoy helped, design this building after meeting with staff and.
3,000 for, I know the equipment we have, and that's.
I had that thought, yeah. I'm glad you brought it up. Yeah.
Always make it bigger.
I understand, but I think we'll come back to this again in a bit in the CIP. I know you're going to give us some more stuff, so. Anybody else?
I mean, you are going to build where we can expand it if we have to.
Well, we hope that the office space is built so that I can have some expansion of my staff. It's
Right.
not built that just for current. So we designed it to add a few more people if need be in the future, so we wouldn't be coming back in 10 years or so to expand.
Thank you. Okay. Moving right along. Also in 2016, we would recommend to you this off-channel reservoir interconnect project. This is a project you've seen before. It's been on the planned project list before, and we ended up deferring it. We'd now like to recommend that we put it back on. This involves, the scope of work here involves interconnecting our existing off-channel reservoirs either with deep trenches or with a large diameter pipe buried deep to connect them deep so that we get the ability to use all the water in those lakes. This would increase our usable capacity in those lakes from 775 acre feet to 3,009 acre feet. So over a 3-fold increase in usable quantity there. Here again, that is $2.6 million, and right now we're recommending that for 2016.
Does that ASR project have any impact upon that interconnection?
I think they are both water supply tools that we would use going forward in the future to help us not only react to drought situations but also to growth. I think they're both needed, and they're, right now we've got the ASR. You can see phase 2 here shown in 2018. If I had my way, I would flip those two and do the ASR first. However, right now it doesn't appear as funding will allow me to do that. We've shown it to you as this recommendation here now. It may be by next year that maybe things will have changed. Some other projects may come in under budget, and maybe we can come back and recommend flip-flopping those. But for right now, I think they're both water supply tools, but they're different. They're different sources.
Often, if we had to tap that OCR.
But we pump in and out of it on a daily basis. We pump river water into them, and then we pump stored water out and pump it to the surface water plant for treatment. How many times have we had to use it where we weren't pumping into it? It's been several times over the last few years, and it's been intermittent, sometimes a week, sometimes 2 or 3 weeks. Early on, a few years ago, we pulled them down, and we ended up using some water from Canyon that we have an agreement with GBRA. They released it, and we had to pull those lakes down in order to be able to have a place to put that water when it came down the river. So here again, we've got multiple water sources available to us, and it gives us the ability to use those and develop multiple strategies to help us react to whatever's occurring at the time.
And your proposal on that interconnecting pipe would be always open pipe?
It's always open, that's correct. It's
So
always
nothing
open.
to maintain as far as valves?
No.
But you're, now you say you pump in and out daily, but that's only to one of them, because they're not interconnected. This is about.
Well, there's 3 of them that are interconnected, that we pump into off-channel reservoirs 3 and 4, which are interconnected right now with a trench. And then there's a pipe going over to off-channel reservoir 8, and from there we pump back to the surface water plant. However, the pipe it is not all the way to the bottom of the lakes. It's like, I don't want to quote it exact, but say if the lakes are 35 feet, maybe the pipe's at 20. In other words, we can't use all the volume of those.
Can you put up that slide?
Yes, go back to that slide. Absolutely.
What reservoirs were you using?
Okay, these 2 that look like, can you see my pointer? This
3
one?
and 4.
The 2 uppermost on the right,
3 and 4?
that's 3 and 4. Yeah, oh, okay, they're labeled on here. Good. 3 and 4. That makes it a whole lot easier to explain. 3 and 4 we pump into those, and then there's a pipe going over into OCR 8. OCR 8 is where our pump station is to send water back to the surface water plant. So we use those daily. In the summertime, when it gets dry, we have to take a large diameter portable pump out there and pump water from these other reservoirs, 5, 6, and 7 that are across Lower Mission Valley Road. We have to pump that water over into 3, 4, and 8 to make use of it. And then when we start getting rain again, we pump it back across and fill them back up. So that in itself is a laborious process, but we do it.
Okay. That was, I think, that's different from what Councilman Balknight asked. How often do you do that? And what's the duration of it? Is it when we hit the river level hits a certain point where you can not take enough out, so you supplement from these other reservoirs?
How often we pump with the portable pump, I believe is your question. We do that almost every summer, because as evaporation occurs and starts pulling down those off-channel reservoirs that are on the west side of Lower Mission Valley Road, we go ahead and pump them full and try to keep them full, so that when we get into a drought situation and we can't take water from the river, then we can pump that back. So we do that almost every summer, pretty much, unless we have there was one year in the last 5 years where we had a pretty wet summer. We didn't that year, but every year since.
And the expense involved in that, I guess, is just manpower and hassle, and you have the equipment already.
It's manpower and diesel, and I have the equipment. I can move 5 million gallons per day with that pump.
And you said we would go from 775 acre feet to 3,009 or something. That's because the pump you have now won't let you grab that far down?
No, I can't get the water from, I can pull off-channel reservoir 8 where the pump station is. I can pull it all the way down, but I can't get the water out of those other lakes over into off-channel reservoir 8 where my pump station is. Only through those shallow interconnects. I need deep interconnects so that water will gravity over on into 8 so I can pump it then to the surface water.
I thought you were doing that with the pump. I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
No, different.
Okay.
I'm taking a portable pump and just transferring water between the lakes as I need to.
What's that expense every summer?
I don't know how much diesel off the top of my head. Do you know, Donald, how much diesel? It's probably 40 hours worth of labor to set the pump up, and another 40 hours per man, and probably 3 men to do it. So 120 man hours setting up, 120 man hours tearing down, and then it's just fuel and maintenance on the pump.
So what does the 2.68 million get us? What does all that money go to?
It gets us a 42-inch diameter pipe.
Go ahead.
It gets us a 42-inch diameter pipe between OCR 4 and OCR 7, and also across to OCR 8, so that we have a deep interconnect that allows us that water to flow in between those lakes by gravity. And then it also gets us those trenches that are shown there kind of in black between the lakes. Those will be full depth or very deep trenches that allow that water to move from one lake to another by gravity. So that now all the water within those lakes is usable water without having to go move it around.
So we're pumping groundwater and doing the exchange program. How does that correlate with this? When you intermingle those, or what do you do?
Well, no, because the groundwater is being pumped in right now downstream of our intake. So here again, it's two different water sources, two different strategies. This is stored water that's available. The other is an ability to overcome environmental flow restrictions that exist on our water permit, or permits from the state that allow us to take surface water. Long term, you're going to need to do the groundwater exchange. Shorter term, you're going to need to rely on these off-channel reservoirs. Depending on what the emergency is that you're trying to overcome, one may be a better resource for you than the other. It just depends on, you select a strategy depending on what's going on at the time. Yes, sir.
If we had an additional 2,234 acre-feet of water in the last 5 years, we wouldn't have to have gotten off the river and stopped pumping. Is that correct?
That would have been enough to keep us off the river. However, being the water supply guy charged with providing a constant source of water to the citizens, this would be my, I would use it as I needed to, but I wouldn't pull it all down initially. I would use some of this, and then I would go to another strategy and save some of this. But yes, purely from strictly numbers, yes, that would have been enough water to keep us off.
And this is more of a fix-a-flat type solution, and ASR is a spare tire.
I don't know that I'd agree to that, but
maybe that wasn't the proper.
I would prefer a better analogy than that.
How many years will it take? Now, this phase 2 of the ASR project is a single well.
It's one new one and one retrofit.
Okay.
So you end up with two.
How many years before it would have any capacity to be of any use after it is funded and built?
10 years.
It takes, well, I have that on the next slide. Hang on, let me go on.
And then like 8 or 10 years?
Oh, less than that, but it's still, we need this stopgap because we're in a drought now.
Storage capacity on those two ASR wells, once they're in, is 2.3 million gallons per day. So every day that you have water excess capacity in your surface water plant, like today, you could store up to 2.3 million gallons in these wells. You can recover 4.5 million gallons from those two wells, but you can't recover it if it's not stored there already. So basically it's going to take, your answer is, I see where you're going. Yes, it's going to take some time.
We have to
even
fill it up
after
first before we can take anything out.
That's correct.
I guess where I'm going.
That's correct.
First off, we got to fund it. Second, we got to build it. Third, we got to fill it.
That's correct.
The length of time between now and then, and we're still in a drought.
That's correct.
That's the point I was
But
trying to make.
I think the thing too, though, we've got to remember is we need to get the ASR built so when we're in a time of plenty, we can store water. Because we can't just wait to get out of the drought and then start thinking about building the facility. So that's one of the reasons we believe that we'd like to do it before the OCR, but we think both are good, and we're trying to fit puzzle pieces in with the money.
And it's already engineered as well.
Yes.
I'd like to make a couple of comments just because of the fact that, this is one of the things on the agenda we got a lot of feedback in. I'm sure I'm not the only one. It's on the front page of the newspaper. And even my daughter came home today saying this is one of the issues. I guess they read from the newspaper and they pick an issue out, and this is what her class talked about today. She said, Dad, tell me about this underground water aquifer. And so I said, okay, I'm going to talk about this tonight and bring up, since folks want to know what different members of their council feel about it. And so I had a few concerns, and maybe as we go through, either after or during, you can kind of address them. You know, of course, the issue in California has come up, and, you know, the poor results that California had. Of course, that's kind of a red flag. And then, of course, you know, what's going on in San Antonio over the years, you know, they've had poor water planning, and, you know, they've kind of found themselves, just like California, in a dire situation. And it seems to me that both California and San Antonio have looked at this type of situation because they've waited till they get into a dire situation, and they're desperately grasping at straws, you know, pretty much to do anything. And so, but it seems like when you look at San Antonio, you look at California, it's kind of a Franken-storage situation. You know, the experience they had, it didn't seem inspiring. And of course, our situation is a little different because, you know, we've got 27,000 acre-feet of water. You know, past councils, you know, really went out of their way to, we have water rights that are 100 years old. We have twice the supply of water that we actually need at present. So, you know, we don't have our backs against the wall. And so I kind of would feel like, since we do have an abundant supply of water, that this, that $21 million is kind of a large sum of money to ask the taxpayers, you know, over time. I understand this is phases, but, you know, in total, it could, as we play it out, it could go up to $21 million. You know, it's a lot of money to spend something we may never need. We don't know if it'll work once it's in place. We're not really sure what the science is based on. And, you know, at least for me, it seems like a complex process. You got the water from the muddy river, and it costs money to treat, and then, you know, bring it up to water, you know, drinking water standards, and then you pump it down into the aquifer, and that costs money as well, and then you pump it out one day, and, you know, which also costs money. And, you know, when you bring it back up, you know, we're assuming it's going to be pristine and not need to be treated again. And so I think that that's a concern. You know, it seems like there's a lot of may, could, mights, maybes. It just seems to me, from a fiscal responsibility issue, when you look at the roads that could be addressed, you know, the first responders that could be added, it seems like, given that we don't have our water, you know, to me, we've got a lot of water rights. We are not in a dire situation like California or San Antonio. It seems like a dicey deal, and especially when you look at the oil industry, if it continues to boom. You know, these oil and gas disposal wells pose a problem, so they're going to continue to be more of those if we have an oil boom. If the oil boom goes bust, then it seems like all these oil, gas, and disposal wells are going to be kind of, all those folks are going to bail out and hide from their creditors in Florida and kind of let those oil disposal wells go in disrepair. So it seems like there's a lot at risk and a lot of unproven science to kind of roll the dice. Just as, that's how I perceive it. So,
are these two projects, I hate to combine them, but they're general fund projects? What are we talking about?
No.
Sales tax.
Sorry? Sales tax? And I'd asked, when we talked about the ASR project, what other financial sources were we going to bring to the table to pay for this? Is there any discussion on that?
Well, I think there's been discussion on the Water Development Bond Board money, but that's
Any
not.
alternatives?
Well, when we started looking at this project, one of the issues I'm concerned with is extending our credit again on the utility side. We're kind of at that limit itself. So going beyond that, we're risking a rating agency issue. I don't like to go in that area. So what's left to us is a pay-as-you-go basis, which I'm recommending. Second of all, if there's any other grants that are popping up in the next year, and that's what Mr. Lynn was talking about, we can switch those projects and use some type of grant funding which doesn't tie the city's hand. That'd be a great opportunity. We're still exploring that. Texas Water Development Board has some things out there, but those are the areas we're still, hopefully, will provide, but we have not concluded any solid grants or anything like towards this project. I'm pretty confident. Let me add another point is that throughout the years, I'm pretty sure we have a lot of downtown utility projects still being closed out, and hopefully, which has been in the past, we have leftover funds that can be transferred over with your blessing and sales tax blessing to accommodate this other project ahead of time. And the only thing we're doing right now is presenting where the money is laying out based on an assumption. And those assumptions will change within a year, guarantee you will. But the best of my ability right now, I have to assume some criteria, and this is the criteria that lays out this plan. And I'm confident, hopefully, by the time next year we have the discussion, possible by the end of this fiscal year, we can have a better insight as to, okay, this project can be shifted without any issue, and the OCR can be pushed back a little further. But again, that's a discussion as to which project has priority. That's I think Lynn has laid out his point that both has its own criteria. You know, we do need something like the connection of the river, our reserve, because that meets the short-term capability needs that we need now. As to the ASR, there's going to be some time involved, granted, but you have to start at a certain time so you can shorten that span as well, too. So those are criteria that you got to consider. Just because we start developing the ACR tomorrow, necessarily it's going to be in place in operation in a year, because you still got to accumulate the water too as well. So we try to make the best guess right now from a financial point and also from a strategy point where we can maneuver these two projects to come in play to give Mr. Lynn available tools to mitigate these drought situations in the current and coming future years.
In my opinion, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
I think the ASR is the long-term solution, and I'd like to proceed and have it ahead of it, understand what you're saying with financial concerns. Reason I'd ask about the summer expense cost you have with setting up the pumps, well, if it was $100,000 for each summer, it's, you know, how long is it going to take to get to $2.5 million or $2.6 million? It's going to take quite a while, and I would rather spend that money on setting up pumps and moving the ASR project if we had the ability to do it, which doesn't sound like we have that extra million there yet. But I'm willing to leave them like they are right now, as long as we can revisit it and see if there's not some way to pull that ASR forward again and get to start storing that water underground.
Well,
I would concur with Councilman Bachnight. Having the options, whether it's the OCR, whether it's the ASR, having our river, water is our greatest need. It's our greatest asset for us being viable in the future, for Victoria to be a place for businesses, for families to live. And without that, we'll be a ghost town. So I think it's vitally important that we pursue all of our options to make sure that we can meet the water demands of our citizens.
We had this report, what, about 2 months ago? Maybe longer? Just the summary report for the development of the ASR?
Yes.
Who paid for this?
It was.
It's on the cover there, actually,
Yes.
all the people.
All
on the
these
cover.
entities? But I thought we had a big grant for the...
Water Development Board grant was applied for by all of those entities, and that paid the bulk of it, and then all the entities kicked some money in too.
I mean, pretty complex report. I've fumbled through it. I'm not a hydrologist. I think we had a very short presentation of this at the time. And here it is. Y'all read it. And then now, okay, let's go to phase 2. I'm just not confident in that the way we've proceeded. We want to talk about wants and needs. I think what the public has said time and time again, ever since I've been on council, I ran on it too. They want their streets fixed. That's what they want. And I think we ought to put that as a priority before this project and I know we've kicked the OCR back a number of times, and I think that's going to be, we can do that, I think, soon. The water's there. We're using it. I'm just not confident right now understanding all the science and certainly all the money involved long-term, because we're talking about $20 million, I think. So
I just want to remind, we cannot use the sales tax money for residential streets.
well, I understand that.
just as a clarification.
But
for
we
the
can
public.
start with a number of streets, Red River,
Yeah, it's on
North, Crestwood. I'd like to see those streets on a shorter time frame than the way we seem to keep pushing those back.
I just wanted to comment one last time. I really share the councilman's concerns. You know, what I hear about are roads, residential infrastructure, and the science really isn't proven. You know, I don't feel it's, like I said, I don't feel it's worked in California. I don't feel it's worked in other places like San Antonio. It's a real risk. We're really meant to be stewards of taxpayer money, and I think it's a real gamble with other people's money.
I would just like to add a few comments myself. Failure to address these issues and wait till they get critical would be a very bad situation to do. We are addressing the streets, and yes, I understand, but short-term projects that kept California from addressing it, kept San Antonio from addressing it. Now they're playing catch-up. It always makes it more expensive. When they're talking about billions of dollars for their water projects, and we're talking $1.5 million, 2.6, it makes it look small by comparison to what these other people are doing. It is by no means small because it is a budget item as well. But failure to address this is just like failure to maintain your streets or anything else. It's going to come back and bite us if we don't address it. Risky? No, it's not risky. This is a pilot project. It'll prove itself. The science is in the study. Is that science correct? Well, let's drill a hole and try it, because that's what science is about. You can't always know all the unknowns. You drill the monitoring well to prove what you just said. It doesn't go any further if it doesn't work. It's worth a 2.6 gamble just to make sure we have water for the future.
2.6 million is a lot of money to just roll the dice with of other people's taxpayer money.
We've commingled two issues here quite a bit. First of all, it's $3.6 million for the ASR. We started out on the OCR now. They're really not related.
We're mixing
They're
them
both
together.
water. I just want to make that clear.
Sure.
Y'all kind of are commingling
That was
numbers.
specifically talking about the underground aquifer issue. I think the science is very dicey.
On the OCR Interconnect Project,
Yes.
would it have prevented you from the groundwater exchange? Is that what it would prevent?
If I knew how long the drought was going to last, it would.
Okay.
But in actual operation, I'm not willing to take the gamble to pull those off-channel reservoirs all the way down in the hope that it'll, so I'm going to pull them down some.
Okay, okay.
And then I'm going to use another strategy because I know I got this in my pocket.
I think you said that earlier. Okay, I want to make sure I understood what you're saying.
And I'd like to clarify on ASR. San Antonio is successfully using ASR, water that's stored in the Carrizo Wilcox. They've pulled 40 million gallons a day out of that for most of last
Well, doesn't El
last
Paso
year.
and
El Paso
Kerrville also have
utilizes
it?
Kerrville has it.
Successfully?
Yes.
They have been successful.
And that's in
as
the
well.
report, I believe.
Yeah.
I think all those are discussed in that report. Okay.
Well, there was the OCR, let's get back to that for a minute.
Sure.
We're going to use sales tax funds for that? How is that an eligible project for sales tax?
Water economic development.
Okay.
Water's a big input, and, you know, don't miss that as, you know, water is such a, we have done a good job in the last 20 years of previous councils and especially staff of keeping us on track with that and making sure our citizens' water bills are appropriate. I talked to some people the other day that had $250 water bills, $250 a month, okay? Very near to here, and that's pretty scary. So, you know, that kind of money adds up over the years and months, and we've managed to keep our water fairly affordable, and that parlays into that economic development aspect. If water is becoming so critical that the cost of it itself is a big draw. I mean, I know you guys know that, but just want to put that into perspective. But the OCR, yeah, it's, you know, it's frustrating for us sometimes. This is not something that's readily seen by our citizens. They drive on Red River every day, and we all hear about it. They don't most of them probably aren't aware of how these OCR, these off-channel reservoirs work, et cetera, et cetera. So makes for difficult decisions. But we do need to have good common sense discussion about it, and I appreciate all the comments tonight. Why don't we, go ahead, I'm sorry, and then we'll just continue.
I'd like to add a couple of small pieces. If we don't do this, we're going to be, I think, concerned in the future, because reliability of this water is based on a river's flow. It's weather-based. Our needs are population-based. We got to quit thinking of water issues as weather-based. Oh, it rained. Oh, we don't have to worry about it no more. A drought's going to come again. It's not weather-based. Just because we happen to be in a drought at the moment, that is irrespective of our growth or our ability to grow. And it will definitely affect our ability to grow. We have these excess rights, but they're run-of-river rights. The river don't always run. Obviously, we have to find a place to store it when it is flowing, so we can use it when it isn't. Simple as that, like a silo.
Well, but we have an aquifer that we've used for the history of Victoria. We recently moved away from it. We have an aquifer with water. We act like there's no water in our aquifer, let's pump some water into it. But we've got a substantial aquifer that's readily available. Now, how we convert back to using groundwater versus surface water, that's probably a very small amount of money to convert the treatment plant to go back and in those occasions where we would desperately need to go to an aquifer. Well, we dump it in the river. We dump it in the river.
Yeah, but we can commingle the water, and then it has its own set of problems.
My understanding is that we just can't take it straight to the treatment plant because of the way we're set up. But my point is, we have an aquifer that's full of water, and then we want to put more water into it. It's kind of confusing to me.
Some of the reasons we got off of some of the wells is particularly as we grew north. The wells in the north, most notably the one that's on Dairy Road, had extreme high sulfur content in it. It smelt like a sewer plant. Is that bad? And they have since then plugged that well.
But we had, at one time, how many active wells? 15, and now we're down to 10.
But the quality of the wells are not all the same.
I understand.
Number two, this can be done on the footprint of the city. We don't affect our neighbors. It'd be all underneath us.
I think, let's not forget that we may have other sources of funding.
But I've read through the study, and there was a lot of science in it. I think it's feasible.
Well, I would agree with that. I mean, I read through the report, and we just cited several communities tonight in Texas that are doing it now successfully. So I disagree with Mr. Hagan about that, but it is what it is. Why don't we continue on?
May I make a comment not on the water issues, just on the reason we bring this CIP list to you guys in March is to have these conversations to see if council wishes to change any of these recommendations. So when we come back in June to start those budget work sessions, we've got a good idea of where y'all want to be. And so that leads me to my next question is, if OCR is not something you wish for us to have in the 2016, if there's some other projects you wish for us to look at, tonight's a good night to tell us, I'd rather you look at this project and bring back in June, the cost of that project or whatever. So,
well, I mean, that's what I've been asking, and I keep emphasizing. North Street, Crestwood, Red River, streets. I've been on council almost 3 years. Streets, and it seems like those roads we haven't done anything to. We did a little bit to Red River, I guess, over there in front of the college, and over to Sam Houston. But that's my. If you want to know where I feel, and I see $6.2 million between the OCR and the ASR between the next 3 years that we can dedicate to those two projects, and I'm thinking, well.
Would that be enough to do those two projects?
I'm not sure, but that's what I was saying. Pick one or two streets, let's do it.
Figure that out, but that's fine, that's fine. I am comfortable with this going this way, and others may or may not be. I feel like what has gotten other communities in trouble is failure to look ahead and plan. And we are working on our streets as we speak. In a few years, we'll have some more money freed up that will allow us to do more, and it's coming along. It just maybe not as fast as you'd like, The public only understands that they turn their faucet on and the water flows. We have to have it somewhere to flow from.
I'd say a bad plan is better than no plan.
But what we can do is, when we come back and start the budget work sessions, we can have some options, and y'all can look at those options for streets.
Okay. You want to just continue on and?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Certainly. Okay, well, as staff's recommendation then going forward after those water projects is to begin working on Crestwood in 2019. We've shown here the section from Maine to Navarro being reconstructed in a 2-lane asphalt section, curb and gutter, sidewalk, and utilities, $3.3 million. That section of roadway has an average street rating of 58 currently, so it is very, very poor. Then, of course, 2020 is the new year. We're rolling into our program. We recommended the second phase of Crestwood, which would be Navarro to Laurent, in that same 2-lane asphalt section, estimated at $3.1 million. Again, that has an average street rating of 58. And then these next projects are our residential streets. The 2.144 that we're showing here is our maintenance project. The 2020 seal coat project, where we would propose to do Cimarron subdivision, Cherokee Hills and Hillcrest, and Fleetwood. Estimated at 2.1. Then for residential street reconstruction, we have 2 projects. The first is reconstructing Castle Hills West, estimated at $4.8 million. This was shown in our residential street improvement program for 2020. Currently, those streets are 83, but the utilities are good enough under there to go ahead and rebuild those streets. And then also the 6th phase of the North Heights subdivision project, that would be San Antonio Street, almost to the end there. There would be one more project after that to finish that up.
Mr. Short?
Yes.
In that residential street program for Castle Hills West?
Yes.
What happens with the alleyways?
We will have to talk about that as we get into design. That's still quite a few years out there. What we've done is come up with an estimate with some contingency in it to replace the roadways, what we think on curb and gutter. When we get closer and start pre-engineering and design, that is something we're going to have to figure out how we're going to deal with.
Okay.
I don't have a clear-cut answer for that tonight. And then the final project that we recommend is the Phase 7, the last phase of the utility replacement in North Heights in 2020, and that is Nueces Street. Here again.
That road is a mess.
What?
That's a mess, that road.
Yeah. That is the last phase in utilities, and then that street would come in 2021 and would complete that North Heights area. Now, to make those recommendations happen with the amount of money, we're recommending 3 deferrals. Juan Lynn Street between Laurent and Port Lavaca Highway. Right now, it's on our planned project list for 2018 to reconstruct in the amount of $4 million. That is the segment that we did some level up on and seal coat this past year. We think because of that now, we can defer that for a few years. Push that back. It will still need to be reconstructed. To give you an idea, the street rating on it was a 60. Right now, we regraded it to a 99. It still needs to be reconstructed. Utilities need to be replaced. But we think because of the work we did that its priority falls a little bit.
So from experience, you think that work that was done is going to last how long?
5 to 7 years.
5 to 7 years.
Maybe less. I mean, it just depends on what the base underneath there, how well it holds up. But typically on a street seal coat, 7 years is what you figure.
And you would push that project to when?
Well, right now, I would push it out of this 5-year planning window.
Because remember, it's not just the street that's everybody's riding on. We've got some poor utilities underneath that facility. Because I've seen so many water leaks throughout the years erupt there. So I would anticipate those water leaks are going to damage that rehab work in the next few years.
Well, and.
So you're balancing
we keep
just the
coming-
surface, but you've got serious problems underneath. And we're doing a lot of Wanland, if I'm not mistaken, fixing water and sewer breaks as it is. So, you know, it's a tough calculation just to suggest, well, because we've done that surface, it's going to last us, the surface will last us 7 years, but in reality, you've got problems underneath that maybe already need immediate attention.
That would be, my recommendation is that we could push it back. Certainly your option,
You're
move it
the-
forward. And we look at CIP at least once a year and we change priorities.
How much utilities? 'Cause this is your street we're talking about.
Yeah, I don't remember, Gilbert.
I think it was pretty, it was a large amount. I know it's,
The utilities underground was the bulk of the project.
well, this $4 million was not the utilities. It was just the street itself.
So that's streets and utilities.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
It's a relatively short.
No, but, yeah, I'm sorry, I stand corrected. You're right.
Just make, you know, I don't know what we can do, but there's a balancing act there, I'm sure.
Absolutely. We just felt like with that, you know, and because we have Red River and Crestwood and some of these others, we felt like we could recommend to you pushing that back a little bit.
If I might add, I mean, you still got about $6 million in 2020 too, so, and that's still there, but anything we start moving around, we won't have to come back with a new plan because it's going to distort how everything falls out from a dollar perspective.
I think so far all I've heard is the water projects substitute for street projects with a portion of the council, not the entire council.
Yeah, we haven't gotten it.
But we'll bring back.
That's correct.
That's what we'll do.
Yeah.
Two more projects that we would recommend deferring. One of those is the expansion of the Loop 175 lift station. That project was added to the planned project list to serve sanitary sewer for a large development that was planned to come outside of Loop 463 there around Mockingbird and Ben Jordan. Since that is not happening, we think we can defer that currently. One day that will need to be expanded. And the same thing with Ben Jordan sanitary sewer extension that would extend a 12-inch sewer main from John Stockbauer to Loop 463. We think the immediate urgency is gone. Now, one thing that our proposal as it stands now does allow is to move that remaining section of Red River from Ben Jordan to Main Street, is bump it up from 2019 to 2018. Right now, that is estimated at $4.7 million. And then as several people have mentioned tonight, there are other projects. You know, we have the remaining section of Crestwood. I would anticipate if you stayed with this recommendation, that final stage would come the next year, 2021. Juan Lynn Street is on here, assuming you defer it right now. It needs to be brought back at some point. We've talked about Millette before. You've got 4 phases of North Street, almost $12 million. $19 million in 4 phases of Ball Airport Road.
What are those sections again? How do you define each section? For
On Ball Airport?
Yes, sir.
I'll show you. Section 1 is just the little section between the highway and Nursery Road, but it contains a railroad crossing, railroad preemption, and a major traffic signal there. That's why it's
about 100 feet.
yeah, if that. $1.7 million. Then you got the segment from Nursery Road over to Spring Creek. Then you got the bridge across Spring Creek at $4.3 million, and then finally that section from Spring Creek to Millette.
I was hoping maybe that section took us all the way around.
Well, and if you look at your debt capacity, we're going to realize starting in about what time?
2024?
There's two two years. You got 2021 when it deals on the water side, when it starts dropping off, and then the 2024 is the on the COs and GO side.
I don't know if we can wait that long, but certainly some of these projects really beg for general bond election, or, you know, we're going to have to look at something down the road, maybe sooner than later, unfortunately, but
as Mr.
general
Lynch,
bond is just screaming here.
Sure. Well, the plan right now with staff that was presented to council, Lynn Short put this big report with some numbers and everything else. The plan is that once we get around 2021, we're going to use quite a bit of debt capacity on the utility side. Plus another, that's when we're talking about also issuing some bonds, but it's going to take some new tax money for that one. And that will get us over the next 2 or 3 years when 2024 comes around, when we have over close to $40 to $45 million debt capacity, just to start kicking it off. That's the plan. If you start anytime sooner, of course, there's a debt to pay. You got to pay the piper. There's tax rates. There's utility bills too as well. So, you know, those, and the best bet for us, and the recommendation we put forward, I believe, about a year ago, Lynn, is that report went out. That is the easiest, nicest way to do it, and that's what all the CIP project points that direction. Lynn's every year road and maintenance always points to that plan itself. So, but to answer the question, we're looking to start in 2021. That's what we're looking at. If council, as majority wants to do it early, then you have some thinking to do about the tax rate and utility bills.
We cannot continue to lower the tax rate and think about a debt issuance, increasing the debt capacity.
We've left the debt side alone.
That's just how it is. Well,
a lot of years,
but you're
at
lowering
least.
your M&O side, and then at some point, you've got to look at your M&O compared to your debt side of your tax rate. You just can't do it.
You can always, I mean, we can always go out and, on the ballot, ask the
with
voters to
any-
approve a nickel or something, and, you know, go to town. And let them decide. I mean,
Well,
And if the voters would agree with any debt issue, there would be a corresponding increase in tax.
Yeah.
If you can make that sale to the public and get them to vote for it, that yes, we will go and fix this, and this with the money we get from this bond issue, but it's going to make this much difference in your tax rate. If you're a good enough salesman, maybe you can do it. I don't know.
Well, I'd feel a lot more comfortable asking the voters.
well, that would have to, we can certainly bring that up later this year. I guess there's another election next year, so continue thinking about that. Ms. Solis, did you have?
Okay, Gilbert, you said that in 2021, the rev or the water bonds, they're going to give.
Your annual debt service would start dropping.
Okay, so
Sorry, go ahead.
if we're going to be doing the OCR and the other water project with sales tax money, why can't we wait till we get the water money, the utility bonds or the rev bonds to pay for?
Well, Mr. Liz, you're talking about a timing gap now. You're talking, instead of doing it in the next couple of years, you're looking down another 5 years, whatever. I can't think right now how many years difference. So there's a big timing gap there. If council likes to wait that long time to do it then, that's your call. But staff's call is to doing it a little sooner now to be in place. To answer your question, could you use revenue bonds? Yes, you could. The question, follow up, do you want to wait that long?
I just wanted to
Sure.
understand the concept so that way I can make an informed decision.
And we
Absolutely.
And we should always remember, too, talking about utilities, that a lot of these streets, we've got to fix the utilities under the street before we can fix the street. And so that's why, you know, we'd have planned utility projects starting in 2021, so we could come back after that when we have the capacity to do the streets. So we need to keep that in mind.
Okay.
So,
Well, again, just to close off, we were handed the street, we were having the street inventory once a year. It's an update. You know, the ones that are performing, you know, I counted 20 in my district of 69 or less. We improved one lent to a 99. I guess it was sitting at, what, about 50 or whatever. But there's still plenty of other streets. And my cutoff is at 69, and everything below, worse than 69, there's probably 50 streets here we can pick. So I would suggest council look at your street inventory as well. What are in your district that need tending to? They created some very nice color maps to show the condition of those streets. So we got plenty of streets to pick and choose from. Now, sales tax is a different matter, I understand.
I do have one project to add. And I'm frustrated. I miscommunicated the city manager about it. I thought it was already on here, but Guy Grant. I call it the Guy Grant ditch. Y'all know what I'm talking about?
Go swimming in
Been an
that
issue
ditch.
for several years. The project I would imagine would be just fill it in first. Pipe it, the great big, and, I'm not advocating for expanding the road, but I would imagine you fill it in and you can remove that traffic barrier along there that makes it so narrow. Kids try to walk along there, et cetera. If you could come back with a number for that, because as I understand it, we can talk about this again, really at any time. So bring us a number for that. Did you want a number on something particular, or you're talking about just shuffling projects around?
Right. Well, again, we had talked at length about sidewalk improvements.
Yeah.
I don't want to forget that, but I think we're going to develop a plan maybe for next year. Well, that's going to take some
Inventory.
more. Yeah, inventory.
And our sidewalks wouldn't be on the CIP project. We would handle that through the street department general fund.
Thank you.
And we've, you have to remember, we've done more sidewalks in the last 15 years than probably the 50 before that. Sam Houston, all that area, there's no sidewalks there. We've built a tremendous amount. Never enough, though, is it? And, as I've argued with Mr. Halapaska for years, we'll never get caught up. He talks about getting caught up. We won't, and the council after us won't. We just do the best we can, right? And y'all had some really good discussion tonight, and I appreciate that a lot.
I make a request, if we talk about shuffling these projects in streets and priorities in streets, could you be prepared to show your excellent plan that you developed on how to pay for them?
Yes.
Just a refresher
On the
to
residential
everybody.
streets.
I actually have it here. I brought it with me because I was looking at that last week. I think it's April 9th of 2014. Yeah, that was a really good, that's good for council to review.
If we go back and relook at what you could substitute the OCR for a street project, we'll need to find something that will qualify for sales tax money. And that's kind of what we'll be looking at, so.
And as you got your sales tax report, you notice we were up like 600,000 or 700,000, and then this month it was flat, just like last year.
Andrew can correct me, but I think we're at 800 ahead. Now
It just went
zip.
neutral.
It just flattened out.
I was surprised, but it did something like that last year. Of course, we could end up, last year you nailed it. I wish you'd be wrong.
I know, me too.
We could. Did you want to?
One more question for Mr. Short. You had a price on Red River?
Yes.
I'm looking for that again.
4.7.
Why is that so much less than Crestwood?
One thing, it doesn't have sidewalks on it. There's no right-of-way in there currently to construct sidewalks on both sides where they're not now. And it's built out, it's going to be very difficult.
Lynn, there's some
Crestwood only has sidewalks on one side.
But I think there's enough right-of-way there. You looked at that, right, Ken?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay.
There was right-of-way room on Crestwood because it's also narrow in those sections.
But Red River, there's not.
Red River, there's very little, if any, right-of-way.
But there are sidewalks on that one section of Red River right in front of those, I think it's, what was it, Victoria Housing Corporation that we had something to do with? Built those 6 or 7 houses between Navarro and Laurent. Isn't there sidewalk in front of those? I thought about that when I read this.
Yeah, I think there may be some sections like that where there is.
We can investigate
But there's
it.
a lot of it that's not, and we didn't think you would want to try to acquire all that right away.
So the Crestwood includes putting sidewalks in? Okay.
Let's see, what else was, I had a thought. I'm trying to remember.
I have a comment while you're thinking about your
No, you
thought.
go ahead. I'm trying to remember.
You don't mind. You know, as we're getting ready for our 2016 budget, these projects are listed under FY 2016. That's kind of, if y'all can focus a little bit on that, and, you know, if you've got some comments on any, of course, we understand the OCR. So, but the other projects that are on that list, you know, if you have any comments on that, I would greatly appreciate those, you know, coming forth. But when you look at 2016, you know, the downtown utility projects, the seal coat projects, the residential street projects, the North Heights, the YMCA pool project, a lot of those we're really committed. Placido Benavides engineering and right-of-way acquisition is in 2016. We hope y'all are okay with leaving that in there, and then we would come back in 2017 to build that road to give us a little more capacity. So I don't know if there's any other questions on any of those projects.
Well, I wish that Ball Airport wasn't so expensive.
So do we.
Because I think I would rather see that than Placido Benavides, but.
Well, you know, that Navarro is.
I don't know which way it's better, take left or take
Navarro
right.
is horrendous, approaching the mall. It's amazing. I'm shocked sometimes at how much the traffic stacks up, and extending Placido Benavides is just critical. That's our only option, and perhaps some other aspects to that too that we can talk about later. But that's a very I want to stick to that engineering, and we still have to acquire the right of way, et cetera. So, but that whole corridor from the mall. You remember when we went out for the dedication of the fire station? I think Ms. Elise, you tried. Did you try to come? You couldn't, and I was stuck in traffic. Got there a little late. It's amazing. So
I didn't see anything on here about Fire Station 5.
There's not.
Not anything on the 5-year window.
Well, the thing that I think we need to do is look at land acquisition and not necessarily building right now, but land acquisition is something that we're keeping our eyes out for to try to do that. So, yeah. But, okay.
Riverside Convention Center.
Yes, Colby's going to talk about that, but I wanted to see if there was anything else on this 2016 list that there's any concerns over or additional, and I'm not hearing anything. Y'all can call me if you have something.
I believe the Placido Benavides needs to go ahead. Probably the most viable and able to be done. I've done do Ball Airport. I've been beating on Ball Airport for 10 years.
It's only $20 million. I mean,
yeah,
it's incredible.
Can we make it a county road first?
Good luck with that.
Market Road.
Good luck with that.
Thank you.
So the thing that is not on your CIP list that Colby's going to talk about is the Riverside, what we're calling Pavilion, the Convention Center. We've been working with Raleigh McCoy on a design, so we've got the dollars for that, and Colby wants to talk about that a little bit today and see what your direction is on that project.
Mayor, council members, as you remember, in the 2015 budget year, we budgeted $50,000 for design of this facility. We structured that contract where the first $5,000 would be for a conceptual drawing, and that's what you're receiving now with the cost estimate on there. The remainder, the $40,000 of that would be to go into construction documents, and then $5,000 would be into construction monitoring. And so I'm going to walk through this, but I wanted you to keep that in mind. This is what we've come back with, demoing that building, coming back with an open air pavilion. There's two options that you see here. One with the top area there that gives you some flow through to get the air coming out of the building up and through. You have another design that just removes that, and there's a cost differential in the two. The cost that you see includes this being in it, and so you can deduct that if you choose to go a different route. And I'm going to go into the numbers. The pavilion itself is, get to it where I can see it. Oops, sorry. Roughly $700,000. Now, if you wanted to go to that design, then you'd be looking at a $500,000 number. So whichever design you want to go, if you wanted to go, you could delete this number by $200,000 if you wanted to go to this design. The overall number of $1.4 million. You've got electrical component, the lighting, interior fans, a concrete restroom facility similar to the one that is at Lone Tree Park right now. That it will be a building that's put in place. I put in, there's a contingency there. I also included a demo cost in that number. The way that we would go about this is to try to put this out for someone to come and demo the building for scrap, but I wanted to include that number just in case that did not happen. And so that number may change depending on, I did get a cost estimate to demo that building. We're hoping to put that on Gov Deals where someone would come actually do it for the scrap of the facility, but I'm not 100% sure that I can, so that's why I included it in this number. Under parking, that is from help with our Public Works Department engineering. That would be for roughly 86 spaces through there, and if you have some questions on that, I may refer to Ken Gill on the parking side of that, but that would be, we wouldn't want to design this for our largest event. You'd want it for an everyday event. We would know that if we had a large event going down there that we may park in the grass or so. I wouldn't want a parking lot that would hold everything in there. It would just be day-to-day use or small family gatherings or reunions, something of that nature.
So this concept is replacing the entire building.
Yes.
And I thought that we were going to reuse the existing building but not the utilities.
You may remember when we had the engineers look at that, it would not, the wall structures would not hold up if we did an open air. The design, the way the structure was, and I'm sure Mr. McCoy will have to help me out, or Colby, it reduced the strength of the building when you took the walls out.
By removing the sides of the buildings to just go with just a top pavilion, something of this nature, the wind load would not hold. And so it would not, and Mr. McCoy's here, I'm sure he can help us out on that more than I can.
Well, I can tell you that building originally, when I was a very young architect, our office was right behind that building. And that building, when it was brought in there, was somebody had purchased it somewhere else and moved it in there. And I remember that gentleman, who I can't remember who it was, but as I remember in our office, that he came in grumbling because he found out he had to build that property up because of the floodplain. So there are no records of what that building's structural capacity is anywhere, what the foundation is. And I think y'all had commissioned a study that I had gotten a copy from Walter P. Moore, did a study on that building. And for them to come in and just forensically study the building and to look at its potential would have cost about $25,000 just for that. And then to try to develop a plan to beef it up could have been, they told me, like another $25,000. So you'd have spent our entire fee just analyzing the building, and you may have found out that you would have spent so much on the building that it became more prudent just to consider taking that structure down, leaving the foundation that's there. And this plan is stepping out to the side of it, drilling some piers, and putting this new pavilion over and utilizing that floor inside of it now. And that's the most effective. And that way you get a building that you know will withstand the wind loads. It gives you a greater possibility of lasting much longer. And when you look at the cost of the building itself, just the structure itself is only around in the neighborhood of about $16 a foot. That's a big building. That's 30,000 feet. So that's a very economical way, in my mind, to get a building that's going to last you for an extended period of time, where the other was really kind of a guess of what you're going to get into once you really start studying it. That was kind of the philosophy. That building, like I said, and it had been added on to several times, so it's just very suspect.
What kind of wind loading is this designed to?
Well, it would have to follow the wind load at 110 miles an hour. That's what the City of Victoria's wind load is. Now, part of the other deal, in addition, that clear story you see on the top of it, it will allow for some ventilation, but the other thing is those lighter panels you see would be translucent panels to allow light within that whole structure, because that, again, that's a big structure. And you would get, with that other feature on there, you would get enough natural light in there. For most of the time, you would probably hardly ever have to turn lights on except in the evenings for those functions, and have a nice, bright pavilion there. It wouldn't feel like it's just a dungeon in there. So, but that is a very old building, and I'm not going to tell you how long ago that was.
But it was disassembled and reassembled
Yes,
there.
it was disassembled, and they brought it in there. And the guy learned, too, that when you take a building like that apart and you try to put it back together, the screw holes don't line up.
Right. Thank you.
The holes on them.
Colby,
Thank you.
you know, this is a new facility. If you think about it, I mean, council too. We're not replacing, because what's there we're not using. And so, you know, I was thinking earlier today when I saw this about the demand and usage of it, I think it would grow over time. I mean, I assume it would, but it might be a draw for larger events down there. You think it would take pressure off the community center for a few events, perhaps?
It's hard to say. I mean, I think the community center is mainly indoor events. I don't know that it would pull off that. It may alleviate some of the special events area that we have. You know, maybe a few events, a few concerts or dances may come over. Mr. Pollack, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
To be able to give you a hard number.
I'm just trying to figure out the need. I liked it better as a, you know, something that we could use, a building that we've purchased, but I don't know what we're building this for.
Well, and we don't use that building. It's unsafe. We've pulled
Right.
the electrical. I think when we sent our building inspectors in there, it was determined that it just wasn't a safe environment for anybody to be in. So
I would like to express one thing. One of the things that we will have to do to demo that building is we will have to do abatement testing on it. The contract that we currently did was, if we wanted to go into drawing phases, it would be another $40,000. What I am proposing is, I've talked today, and it would cost us $10,000 to do the abatement process, so we would know if there's things hot or anything of that nature. I would like to not go forward with this contract until we feel comfortable of what we're going to build and how we're going to pay for it, and go ahead and get that abatement testing done.
That wasn't done during the due diligence when we purchased?
no.
Okay.
Oh.
You have to do lead paint testing as well.
Yes, sir.
I would, you know, submit that we just take care of that. Perhaps you can get it scrapped for no cost and removed, and then readdress the issue, revisit this. You know, the financing situation might change, the scale may change somewhat. I mean, I like it, but I do know that there's no immediate need. It's a new asset to your inventory of things.
I think no matter what we do, my opinion is that we remove the building.
Yeah.
And so I would like to start moving forward with that process and see if there's additional things that I would have to do to be able to do that. And that's what I'm recommending on the budget for this current year.
We have the money to do that if y'all are okay with us moving
But
forward.
we want you to get it done for nothing, so once you give
On the abatement testing, we have
Yes.
the money to do that.
Can I suggest that
That way we could maybe, instead of adding this into the budget, we could use it for some of your streets.
Well, this isn't budgeted.
this is,
This 1.5
no,
is
this
not
is
budgeted.
1.4 million, by the way. And I think some of the conversation is like, okay, should we not maybe go back and do a feasibility here and see what's feasible, you know, what does, you know, wait till see, I mean, the comprehensive plan maybe enters a conversation into this. You know, we're going to build this facility for what? The way it's being proposed here. What's it going to do?
outdoor activities.
define that? We have a demand out there of outdoor
Concerts, et
activities?
cetera. I don't know, that was what I asked a few moments ago.
What's the income, we got any projections on revenue and any of that stuff? But my point is, our question is maybe it would warrant a feasibility study period because right now I can tell you, just from this picture, do we have a stage in there? I don't see a stage. Are we going to store?
No.
I don't see storage for chairs. I don't see for tables. Lighting, I'm not sure what the lighting really is going to impact that area in the evenings. There's so many. What's going to be the multi-use? It's just going to be a concrete with a cover on it. Wait a minute. You want to have events there, you're going to have equipment.
A little early.
It is, and we just, we bought it, and then we did had conceptual design done at council's request on an open-air pavilion, and that's what we're bringing back with the cost. So
I'm all right going forward with the abatement study.
Yeah.
We'll see this.
That has to be done.
Definitely.
it does have to be done, yes. Okay, so we'll move forward with that right now. Okay.
So, thank you, Colby. Decision points in particular, we're going to come back with some numbers and put this specifically on the agenda for the next meeting?
Oh, I would give us a couple,
Okay.
maybe the latter part of April, give us some time to go back and look at, is that okay, Andrew and Gilbert? Maybe, not Andrew. Andrew, is that okay? That second meeting in April would be okay to focus on street projects in lieu of the OCR, and I'm not hearing much on any of the other projects.
Well, in my opinion, you're saying OCR, I'm saying push both, OCR and ACR.
Well, and I'm kind of focused on 2016 for our budget. But
Which is just the
true. Which is OCR, I understand.
Yes, sir, yeah, for 2016, so.
Well, let's narrow it down to a choice on some specifics at that point.
Absolutely.
We have plenty of time before the June budget meeting.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, so that.
Anything else? And before I adjourn, just remember the Plan 2035 meeting, Tuesday, March 31st, 2 weeks from tonight, 5:30 at the Victoria Community Center, and there will be door prizes, so you got to show up to win and help us out. So thank you.
Absolutely.
We are adjourned.
Yes.
Thanks so much.